Out of all the species to ever live, all but a tiny fraction have gone extinct. At some point in the future, this same fate will befall on humanity. The question is then, when? While extinction is unavoidable, what we do now determines if our extinction happens in decades, centuries, or even eons. What steps humanity takes now will lay the path forward to determine if we will ever live out our fate in the stars. Earth is not forever. As much as we take it for granted, we should all know that in due time, Earth will no longer be inhabitable. Therefore, it is not a question of if, but when we will no longer be able to stay here. But from what? This is the real question at hand. Everyday threats to the future of our beloved home planet include, but are not limited to, asteroid impacts, black holes, supermassive solar winds, a breakdown of the protective ozone layer, gamma ray bursts, natural disasters, nuclear war, climate change, resource wars, natural pandemics, and even Thanos' galactic mission. However, let's say that humanity is so stubborn, so lucky, that we too beat all these impossible odds, and continue to live out just fine on our big blue rock. Well, even then, given about 1 to 4.5 billion years, our very sun will be the utter demise of Earth. At the end of the sun's lifetime, it will swell up into a massive red giant as it burns the remaining hydrogen and helium left within it. So much so that it will encompass a diameter that swallows the very orbits of Mercury, Venus, and yes, Earth. This is not speculation. This is an astronomical truth. So, Earth is not forever. In basic economics, if you compare this situation to something like the stock market, it is often well-taught advice that you diversify your money across multiple stocks. If you had $1,000, why would you dump it all into one risky company? Instead, you spread it out among several companies to increase your chances of overall gain. This is the situation we face now, except it's not $1,000. It's the fate of humanity. We are currently placing all or nothing into this big blue floating rock in the dead of space. So it is natural that we want to spread out, increase our cosmic odds of growing as a civilization. And we're doing just that. We are currently in the beginning of a new space race, one to break records and boundaries never thought achievable before in the history of mankind. To begin to understand how we can make it to the cosmos, we must begin by understanding the fundamental truths of the universe. The universe is bigger than the human brain can even imagine, billions of times bigger than anything you could ever dream of, but yet even the smallest of particles play a huge role in our universe. Starting from the atom, the single most thing in which we and all objects are made up of. All work in great symphony of physics to create the world we live in. Our universe is composed of matter and dark matter alike. What we see around us, such as stars and galaxies, are made up of baryonic matter. We also know dark matter has affected the expansion of the universe, tending to accelerate its expansion. With this said, the universe is constantly expanding, like a balloon. And with it, the galaxies that we see in the night sky are only getting further and further from us. So much so, that in a few million years, we will only be able to see a combination of the Milky Way and our closest neighboring galaxy, the Andromeda Galaxy, and nothing else. But of course, it is far too early to worry about such things now. but it is true that sooner or later, in the timescale of the universe, the Milky Way and the Andromeda will be one. Moving along, black holes, as previously mentioned, are unimaginably large holes in space-time in which matter is pulled in and never seen again. Where this matter goes is unknown. However, it is theorized that this matter could leave a trail off from a white hole, which is in essence the opposite of a black hole and spits out matter. In a black hole, matter is shredded into the smallest subatomic particle. Without a doubt, black holes have a huge impact on the universe. Its gravity can bend light, and it can tear entire solar systems to its smallest particles. Its ability to bend light is one reason why we know of its existence. However, this isn't even the most impressive effect they have. Black holes have the ability to warp space around them and influence time, a phenomenon called time dilation, due to the fact that time is relative to the physical form of space. For example, if you were to move near a black hole, time would slow down around you dramatically. So much so that for you, spending an hour near a black hole could actually be more like a decade for everyone back on Earth. In terms of the grand scale of the universe, one topic that often comes to mind is if we are alone. Well, despite life perhaps being rare for us, because the universe is so immensely large that mathematically, there are civilizations out there. Whether they still exist, of course, we don't know. However, according to Drake's equation, which is an equation used to calculate the number of civilizations, there could be thousands. A likely scenario, as it's called, the Great Filter, is a series of tests of which a civilization passes. It is entirely possible that humanity could be the most advanced, while other life is not intelligent enough to become a civilization. Or perhaps, like in the scenario of the Great Silence, maybe humans are just an extremely rare anomaly and we're all alone in the universe. However, again, this seems unlikely as we have discovered many exoplanets lately that may be ripe with the conditions to sustain life. Exoplanets meaning any planet that is outside of our own solar system, such as the TRAPPIST system and the Proxima Centauri b. Could these exoplanets be the key to the mystery of us being alone in the universe? Could there possibly be life out there, waiting for us to discover it? Now that we are knowledgeable in the cosmic facts of our universe and abroad, we feel well prepared to take that lone step into the depths of space to make humans an interplanetary species. We start now. This coming decade will usher in the first baby steps for our long journey, starting with the Artemis Mission. The Artemis Mission, designed by NASA and in partnership with other private space businesses, will be the starting mission to the cosmos. By establishing a moon base composed of a lunar station in orbit around the moon called Gateway, a moon base with readily available resources and communication in orbit between Earth and the moon. With the help of an established moon base, missions beyond will become multitudes times easier thanks to the low gravity of the moon. Missions to deeper space are so difficult because of the gravity on Earth, leaving it as the majority of the problem when it comes to the launches. About 80 to 90% of the rocket bodies are just fuel storage in order to get your payload off the face of the Earth. With the aid of the moon base, water, ice from the moon, and imported resources from Earth can be used to create fuel on the moon, and with its low gravity, The need for such tremendous amounts of fuel diminishes, meaning more space and more fuel to go to farther places, such as Mars. This is where possible evil genius real-life Tony Stark, Elon Musk, comes into play with his plans for SpaceX and the colonization of the planet Mars. The first true step into making humans a multi-planetary civilization. The initial stages will begin with the first fleet of several unmanned starships from the SpaceX company landing on the surface of Mars, delivering necessary resources, habitats, food, fuel, scientific instruments, and things of the like, along with robots to establish an infrastructure for the arrival of the first humans on Mars. The importance here is that because Mars and Earth revolve around the Sun at different distances and different speeds, this mission is not a quick one. About 2 years at the very least until Mars and Earth line up in a position in which the astronauts will be able to make the 7-month journey back to Earth. From there, a cycle of resource shipments and upgrading infrastructure will eventually lead to, if done right, a self-sustaining civilization of humans on the planet Mars. From here, we move forward to the hypothetical future, the future that is a human civilization so advanced that interstellar travel becomes possible. As of now, this idea of travel is only theory, and a lot is unknown. But what is known, as of now, makes things a whole lot more difficult than it may seem. Firstly, destination. The most obvious candidate for our first destination is our closest neighboring star, Proxima Centauri, and its 2 exoplanets that may be habitable and make up their own solar system. This system is about 4.5 light years away. Beyond that is the TRAPPIST-1 system, another solar system made up of 7 more exoplanets, with even greater odds of habitability, roughly around 40 light years away from our solar system. However, if humans are ever going to become an interstellar civilization, we must overcome the greatest boundary of all: the unimaginable vast distance between celestial bodies. All things considered, the fastest man-made object humans have ever launched was the Juno probe. As we slung it around Jupiter's gravitational field, thus gaining it more speed and going a mind-numbing 165,000 miles per hour. Understand that if you were taking a flight from New York City to LA going at that speed, it would take only 23 seconds. Yet that is only 0.064% of the actual speed of light. If we could only travel as fast as the Juno probe, it would take 6,711 years to get to Proxima Centauri. So there must be better options. Here we introduce methods of space travel. As mentioned previously, our normal rocket thrusting techniques will not suffice for this type of space travel. We will need something much more powerful. Option 1 could be nukes. Literally. The idea that we can detonate nuclear blasts of the fusion of particles so big behind our spaceships that we could essentially ride the waves of these blasts of transportation. However, all things considered, the amount of nukes, resources needed, and cost of energy far outweigh the general efficiency and feasibility of a transportation method such as this. Option 2, Wormhole Theory. In order for us to understand this method, we must understand the fabric of space. It is proposed in theory that space is like that of a plane, a sheet of fabric, the fabric of space-time. Now typically, we go along this plane from point A to point B in a straight line. However, according to Einstein's theory of general relativity, space-time can be warped and shaped by the mass of celestial objects, thus causing what is known as gravity. For example, if you were to place a bowling ball in the middle of a trampoline, it would sag under the weight, and any other small tennis ball or small object around the trampoline would be pulled inward. That is the case with the mass of a celestial object. Now, the theory of wormholes is that if you were to somehow be able to control and concentrate a specific amount of space-time so much that you could bend and curve it in on itself, just like bending a piece of paper from end to end and punching a hole through the two ends, you have arrived at point B without traveling the full length of the paper. And in our case, we would have traveled to Proxima Centauri without traveling the full 4.5 light years. This method is highly speculatory. While it would be feasible for us to go into a wormhole, especially with almost current technology, seeing as we wouldn't actually have to travel at impossible speeds. The downside is that the how of creating a wormhole is not very well understood at this time. Option 3 is the warp drive method of interstellar travel, one that also takes into account Einstein's theory of general relativity. You see, with a hypothetical warp drive, a spaceship would essentially be able to expand the fabric of space behind them and minimize it in front of them to travel. This method uses no actual thrust, instead relying on the stretching and compression of space itself to travel. One could think of this like a slinky. If you were inside a slinky and expanded the slinky behind you and compressed the slinky in front of you, suddenly you have traveled from one end of the slinky to the other. This is exactly what a hypothetical warp drive would do, except for the fabric of space. Relying on a massive antimatter to power this drive, it's theoretically possible given the right amount of energy, which, at our current calculations, we would need the energy equivalent to the entire mass of the planet Jupiter in order to operate a warp drive to a reasonable scale. Seems to say that our current understanding of these topics is theoretical and far from actually putting into practice. However, one must think of the sheer ingenuity of us clever humans. In just 66 years' time, we went from the Wright brothers flying the first plane on Earth to sending the first men to step foot on the moon. Given the proper amount of time and the rate of our evolution, achieving speeds close to that of light speed or unlocking the truth behind warp drives and wormholes may be in our future. In 1997, we launched the Cassini space probe for a 13-year mission around the planet Saturn. And while we learned an incredible amount of knowledge and data from Saturn, its rings, its atmosphere, and its surrounding moons, there is but one instance that stands out in this mission. The day the Earth smiled. During the duration of the mission, there was one point in which the Cassini space probe decided to turn back on us, with Saturn in the foreground and Earth as a little pale dot in the far background. And here is where astronomer Carl Sagan said it best. Look again at that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone who you've ever heard of. Every human being who ever was lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter, every forager, every hero and every coward. Every creator and destroyer of civilization. Every king and peasant. Every young couple in love. Every mother and father. Hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. Earth, though it isn't forever, does in fact still have a good amount of time left. After all, it's important we take care of it at the very least. Currently, it is all that we have, for the sake of the future of humanity. That much is a good thing. What does not have a lot of time, though, is us. In the cosmic grand scheme of things, we are nothing but a blip in an uncaring and unknowing universe. Our lives, though they seem long, are at the same time really not. Then, what comes next? Well, a lot of us believe in something after. However, according to what we know visually and scientifically, we don't know if there is. Therefore, this could be it. This life could be all that we get. But this isn't as scary as it sounds. If you don't remember the billions of years that came before you, then the trillions and trillions of years that go by after you will pass by in no time. On top of that, according to everything that we know, eventually, the universe will die too. And in the end, nothing will ever happen, ever again. So what's the point of furthering the human race if it'll all come crashing down eventually? If the extinction of everything is inevitable? Well, topics like this are definitely a heavy toll on the mind. They can produce a lot of existential dread in most people. So instead of thinking that everything is pointless because this blip of an existence is ultimately nothing in the grand scheme of the universe, we must think differently if we are to enjoy the finite amount of time we have here. It is nice to counter existential dread with optimistic nihilism. It seems like one big cruel joke, really. We became self-aware of our place in the universe just to learn that it seems like things weren't all made up for us. We're just a minor blip in an endless ocean of cosmic events. Well, so what? We only get one life, which can be scary, but it's also liberating. If the universe is to end in heat death, then every bad thing you ever did, every humiliation you ever suffered, every mistake you made will all not matter in the end. Think of it like this. If we only get one life and the universe is meaningless, then your life is the only thing that should matter. If the universe has no purpose, then we get to give it purpose. From what we see now, it seems like we're alone in the universe. There has been no real evidence to show that there are any other forms of life out there besides our own. Therefore, mankind is set free in a cosmic-sized playground. If we are free to do whatever we want in the cosmos, then there is so much left to be done. Illnesses to be cured, happy feelings to be felt, civilizations to grow, and exploration of galaxies to be accomplished. If this really is our one shot at life, then there is no reason to not have fun and live as happily as possible. You decide whatever your life means to you. Bonus points if you make the lives of other people around you better. And extra bonus points if you help contribute to the future of humanity's galactic civilization while you're at it.